so this is War Gaming development blocks. Okay, let's start with the probably pretty short one. What is this? Changes to test chips. Close test 13.2. Wait, are we on 13.1 now? No, we're on 13.2. Oh, so this is current patch changes. Chikuma, Duke and Orion. Bomber arm. Well, they're nerfing the torps on the bomb or torpedo bombers. That's always good. Planes suck. Huge nerf to Duke of Brunt. Whoa. No, I haven't installed any mods. But wait, hold on. Thank you, by the way, TC, for the 3 months. Wait, so they nerf both AP damage and accuracy at the same time. That's pretty brutal, isn't it? Like, I can understand one at a time, but this is like sledgehammer nerf. This is consistent. This takes consistency out the window, and then whatever you can land is now doing 10% less damage as well. Interesting. That's pretty tough. Yeah, it's a test Rodney. It's a Nelson clone, but all change Duke of Brunt will be applied to Rodney. Fair enough. I understand if it's overperforming, but I'd assume they do one at a time. This is kind of brutal. Anyway, Orion detectability range increased 10 to 10.5. Fair enough. It's a tier 6 cruiser. Tier 6 cruisers are generally like cruisers. Tier 5 and Tier 6 cruisers are generally in a terrible spot. Most Tier 7 cruisers are in a pretty bad spot as well. The ones that aren't in a bad spot you tend to be premium or new ships that have a heal. If they're all tech tree lines, they're not the greatest experience. But low tier is really brutal. Okay. Now this is interesting. Unique upgrades for Vermont and Colombo. Brick leg mod. Oh man. Okay, let's see. 13.3. So in update 13.3 we will commence the testing of 2 new unique upgrades. So next patch they'll start testing them. For the testing of these new unique upgrades we will utilize 2 clones of the ships. Utah is a clone of Vermont and Amerigo Vespucci is a clone of Cristoforo Colombo. These ships will have changes applied according to the effects of the unique upgrade. Utah, so Vermont. Upgrade slot 5 removed. That's concealment. What do you mean upgrade slot 5 removed? Oh, okay, so it's gonna go into slot 5. So you're gonna be replacing concealment on the brick with main battery reload time 8%, continuous AA damage 15, ASW 15. Brick without concealment mod is 14 conceal. In return, you get 8% reload and AA and ASW, sure. But yeah, no, this doesn't seem that good. This seems pretty bad. Because, like, concealment is a key part of not just brick survivability. The fact that it is really good conceal, 12.6, is one of the great strengths of the ship and kind of demented that it has such good conceal. It's one of the great parts about it because it gives that conceal gives it survivability. You can go dark. It's easier to disengage. You stay alive easier. It also gives it maneuverability because you run brisk on the brick. So it gives you 10% speed. And the more you're spotted, the less you have that speed boost active. And third of all, it actually gives you damage because it allows you to often open up from stealth, surprising targets, catching them off guard with a massive volley. So if you can't slot concealment in slot 5, you're losing out on survivability, maneuverability, and raw damage. So in return, what you're getting is 8% reload. Okay, so you go from what, 40-second reload to 37, I guess, roughly 36 point something. It's nice. You can get Vermont to 32. I mean, yeah, you can get it to... Yeah, but who runs reload mod on Vermont? I mean, considering you can't run conceal, you might run reload mod or something, but that's not really brick. Continuous AA damage. Okay, continuous AA damage, that's not really gonna help you much. Like, okay, it helps you against carriers who dodge flak. But if a carrier is good enough to dodge flak, then you're not gonna do much to him with your continuous either. That's really the core issue. Where's my brick? There's brick. So continuous goes from, yeah, another issue is most of the continuous on the Vermont is mid-range. 3.5. So you got short range, mid-range, and then the weakest of them all is the long range. And the thing with AA is the long range is much more powerful than the mid to short, because mid to short only affects when he strikes you and only when the planes hover on top of you. And oftentimes when the planes are on top of you, they have massive survivability buffs or they're straight up immune to AA because of their mechanics. So get 15% to this is, well, it's not gonna really change much. That's really not gonna change much. And 15% to ASW, was it reload? 15% ASW reload. Once again, that's... You got 30-second cooldown now. So you get, what, 4.5 seconds shaved off? So you get 25.5. But once again, most of the time, if a sub is spotted, you have both your ASWs ready, and then it goes dark again for a long time. Usually by the time it's spotted again, it's available again. Rarely are you limited by Death Charge cooldown. More often you're limited by the fact that he just dodges it and he goes dark. Rarely is the limit... Like... No, that's just... This is... You're getting a lot of... You're giving up one of your most important stats. And besides the main battery reload, everything else is kind of fluff. I don't see myself using this. Like, both of these work if you encounter really dented sub or CV players, but if you encounter really dented sub or CV players, you don't really need either anyway. Whereas, the concealment is always good. It's never bad. Also remember that fire is a percentage buff. Percentage debuff. So, like, if you get set on fire with your base conceal, 14 conceal, this is like basically no concealment mod. If you get set on fire here, you got 16 km spotting range. Whereas, if you have 12.6, you got 14.6 km spotting range. So it scales, like, you get spotted normal and you get spotted on fire much larger. So good luck disengaging being on fire in Vermont. You're basically never going to be able to do it. No, 8% of these, the most valuable is the 8% reload. And I don't see myself giving up my conceal, which is literally what makes one of the things that makes Vermont stand out. I don't see myself giving up that for 8% reload. That seems like a pretty bad trade, if you ask me. Okay, Amerigo Vespucci. So this replaces slot 6. Main battery shell dispersion reduced by 6, reload time reduced by 6. Okay, so we're replacing the 12% reload. That's what this does. So we're replacing 12% reload, and of course the debuff that comes with it, which is the worst turret traverse, but it's not really that big of a deal on the Colombo. But still, it's worth mentioning. You don't have the minus 13% debuff. So you're giving up essentially giving up 6% reload for 6% dispersion. That might be pretty good. That might be pretty good. Because Colombo is kind of like opportunistic. So having better dispersion on your volleys might be pretty useful. This one seems worth running. Because rarely do you in BBs shoot every cooldown. Like reload in general in BBs, unless you're like a raw DPM battleship, let's say something like Illinois or something like that. Unless you're shooting on cooldown, battleships rarely shoot as soon as they reload their guns. Oftentimes you're looking kind of for they're turning, you're waiting for a turn, you're looking for something. Very rarely do you actually shoot your guns instantly every time you reload. So reload buff is probably one of the least valuable buffs you can get on a battleship. Unless you're something like Republic. But there you shoot every cooldown because that's literally the gimmick. So I think the 6% dispersion to make that big broadside of the Colombo more accurate is probably, this might be worth running. This one might be interesting. I'm not sure if I'd spend 20k research bureau points on this, but it certainly seems to make more sense, or it seems to be pretty decent. This one is probably worth running. 6% dispersion can be pretty big. Because the thing, especially with the Colombo, is SAP requires specific target hits. You need to hit specific parts. It's not like Yamato where you just left-click the ship in general. You want to hit parts where SAP can do damage. And better dispersion allows you to do that more consistently. So this is probably much more valuable than the reload. So this one is probably worth. This one seems worth running and interesting. This one seems unlikely to be worth it unless you go for some sort of pure DPM Vermont build, which is like, I don't know, heavy AP, furious, reload. But even then, it's like, I think it's just a worse Vermont. It just leads to a worse Vermont eventually. Interesting they give it 6% reload and 6% better dispersion, because like, didn't they nerf Yamato? Where the hell is Yamato? Where's my Yamato? Yamato had a leg mod. Yeah, Yamato had a leg mod that used to be 11. How much? I don't remember how much Yamato used to be, but Yamato's leg mod used to be better, and they nerfed it because they said it's too good. Which is interesting because this one only gives 7% dispersion and it comes with a 30% debuff. Whereas the new Colombo mod is now going to be 6% dispersion and 6% reload with absolutely no debuff. And this minus 13% traverse speed is actually really fucked on the Yamato because you got terrible traverse. So you're giving up a lot for this dispersion. Like you're giving up a lot on the Yamato to get this dispersion. So this is a heavy trade-off. Whereas the Colombo one just looks like a flat upgrade with no downsides, which is, whoa, okay, this is bad, by the way. This should be. I'm gonna do it now so I don't forget. But yeah, this is, this is interesting. Yeah, I haven't played Yamato on EU in like 2-3 years, hence the damage con instead of the prop mod. Damage mod was good when there was more dot damage. But nowadays, carrier subs, like there's so much raw citadel damage, you need to be avoiding damage, you can't try to survive dot damage. Prop mod is basically the best on every ship in the game, just because, well, raw damage has gotten so crazy, citadel damage has gotten so prevalent, it's not worth building for anything except ignoring it, or trying to avoid it, that is. But yeah, no. Yeah, no, Colombo one seems really good. Kind of bafflingly good, actually, compared. And then there's balance changes. Okay, what is this? Public test. So this is being tested on public test 13.3. So this is the upcoming patch. So this should be on PTS now, or whenever PTS is live. Okay, what are you doing? Visby gets more depth charges, fair enough. Moving it, very small buff then. Westeros, 8 to 12. Okay, 2.4, 2.5. Ellie, 2 to 4. Skåne, 10 to 12. 8 to 10. I mean, it's nice, sure, but like DDs are kind of suffering against subs. I mean, at least they can't be shotgunned as easily, but the problem is, once again, plane-based ASW is so superior to ship-based, it's not even funny. 8 to 10. 8 to 10. I'm glad to see it buffed. The problem, however, I've rarely found the problem with depth charges to be the count or the raw damage. Well, raw damage somewhat, because it tends to do very little damage. But rarely have I found the amount of depth charges drop to be the issue. It's more the fact that getting into a position where you can use them and have vision of the sub without being killed is extremely rare, unless the submarine is an idiot. Like, if the submarine sails into your spawn and you get to kill him for free, then this is nice. But 99% of the time the issue is he spots you, If you try to sail towards him, his entire team kills you. And then when you get close, he dives and disappears. And because you don't have Hydra on any of these, you can't spot him. He just goes away. And like the count is rarely the issue. It's the vision game that's mostly the issue. The fact that he outspots you and he can disengage from a battle at will. Another issue with the likes of Skåne and Öland is if you try to play aggressive, like look at the 16 bombs. If you try to play aggressive in an Öland against a sub, he can sit on the surface, and if you use your guns and he dives, you're spotted by their entire enemy team. Even if you don't use your guns, you're spotted by the team because he's sitting there spotting you. And Öland has no way of disengaging. Öland can't smoke. Öland is slow. Öland has no saturation. So very rarely is the issue, man, I wish I had 4 more depth charges, then this would have turned out differently. No, more often than not, the issue is, well, he just disappeared, I can't do anything, and then I die. These depth charges need more radius. Yeah, there's also the issue with like depth charge radius is different for subs. Depth charge radius is different for subs than it is for carriers. Like carriers have vastly different damage modifiers. I actually made a tweet about this. This is pretty old. This is September 2022. September 2022. Basically, the auto ASW on CVs have a vastly different damage profile. This is the standard. This is standard how standard depth charges work. This is the full area. This is what you get often, the 0 damage, but you cause floods. This is the one you get quite often as well, where you do half damage. You do roughly half damage. This is the biggest area. And then this is the direct hits. And as anyone know, getting ship-based direct hits is very, very difficult. You rarely, like, you can almost hit the guy in the face with the depth charge without getting a direct hit. And that's something to do with how deep they sink as well. So this is like a circle formed. So this, and then if you look at the carrier ASW, who much more often gets these direct hits, you can see how the damage profile looks like this. Do you see the difference? First of all, the direct damage area on carrier depth charges is much larger. And also, the fall off here is vastly different. They, instead of doing half damage, they do what? 2/3 damage? And there's also the fact that carriers... Thank you, Full Fathom. Yeah. And so, and there's also the fact that if you look at the area of effect of ship-based ASW is 375. The half damage is 300, the direct hit is 150. For a carrier, only the direct hit damage is 300. So the carrier direct hit area is this. Where you get splash damage as a surface ship, a carrier gets direct hits. And then it goes way beyond the 375 that normal depth charges have, and you get 480 and 600 meters. So this is like, in terms of size, it's vastly larger than normal depth charges, and the damage fall-off is also vastly different. So this is, there's a lot of hidden mechanics regarding ASW in the game, and more often than not, these hidden mechanics screw with surface ships. Of course. But the fundamental issue really is that chip-based ASW is kind of suffering in this game. Thank you, Torbjörn, for the 49. But I mean, all of this also comes down to the fact that Wargaming has these Cold War airships, and we have World War One technology on our depth charges. Like our depth charges in World War ships that every surface ship has is basically a timer on a bomb that they roll off the deck that falls in the water and explodes after a certain time. That's our depth charges in World of Warships. And that's the kind of depth charges they used in World War One, like 1914, 1915. That's when they developed and started using those. We don't have any modern technologies. Despite the fact that we're fighting modern subs, and modern aircraft carriers, and we're sailing in basically Cold War era ships, our depth charges are still World War One depth charges. We don't have Hedgehog. We don't have Squid. We don't have Fido. We have none of the technologies that were developed during World War II to counter subs. Like other things that were literally explicitly developed against subs, like ASTIC, hydroacoustic search, doesn't work against subs in World of Warships. RPF, which was literally used to triangulate subs position when they use their radio. RPF doesn't work against subs. Like, there's a million things in this game that have that were completely missing from our anti-submarine warfare, and this is obviously intentional. It's kind of like our AA. We're fighting jet planes, but we have World War One manually aimed AA instead of having radar-guided VT fuses. It's people talk about how subs and carriers were historically accurate for World War II. The problem is what they always leave out is the fact that our counters to said classes are entirely missing from the game, and that's why it's pretty awful to play against both of them. Gdansk diff charges. This is all nice, but have the devs actually tried to sail a Gdansk on top of a sub? Like, have they tried this? Where the sub spots you from like 5 kilometers away almost, and then the Gdansk radars, but because he's in fucking periscope, he doesn't get spotted by the radar, and then the fucking Gdansk gets annihilated trying to sail up to him. Like, have they tried any of these things? Thank you, TC, by the way, for gifting a sub to Braindead Superman. Like, the extra 100 damage, it's like this is throwing the player base a bone. This doesn't do anything. This doesn't in any way alleviate the core problem. Hello, Malta. Def charge increased. Def charge increased. This is all nice and all, but like, once again, this changes very little. Also, yeah, the turning circle. Like, a sub can probably do 3 turns in the time it takes for Gdansk to turn 108. Like, didn't subs just get a damage reduction upgrade? They did. They got a couple of them, actually. So whatever damage increase we get here is probably already being offset by the damage reduction they got. Does München have ship-based? I assume it does. That's, like, once again, yeesh. This is nice and all. This is nice. Okay, 4 was really tragic. 4x220, that was really tragic. I'm glad it's getting more. How often you get to use them is another thing, but hey, I'm glad. Sure. Wait, does mine have ship-based ASW? Oof. Nice button. Sure. Good luck hunting subs in Felix Schultz. Said 44, 4 to 12. I mean, these are nice. Once again, these are nice changes. But how often do you get to use any of these? You don't. The only time you get to use this is when the sub really fucks up. Yeah. Huge helping buff. Done way. Honestly, more than anything, this shows how many ships in this game still have ship-based ASW, despite the fact that ship-based ASW is dog shit in this game. Wait, they nerfed chunking diff charge count. Is there a lot of chunking hunting subs out there or something? Huh? Okay. Fusion count goes up. Ancient count goes up. Number goes up. It really shows just how much of a joke ASW is when they can casually double the count and increase the damage by what? 30%? Not quite 30%, 25%. But like for any other parameter in the game, if you increase the count by 100 and the damage by 25, it would be like, what the fuck? That's huge. But the ASW is such a joke that they could change this from 4 to 40. They could do a fucking what is it? 1000% increase. They could increase this from 4 to 40, and the game balance would in no way change. It would affect nothing about the game. They could give the Fusion 600 diff charges. You could start the game dropping depth charges. You could drop depth charges from the start all the way to the end of the match, and I would promise you that fusion stats in no way would change. Ramat, Gajamana, yada yada yada. Compound damage. Like, unironically, you could. Loyang is the only one who can actually somewhat benefit because Loyang actually has Hydro and Smoke, and it's pretty fast and agile. So Loyang could probably do something here, and it gets 14 depth charges. And Yang gets 16. But there's so many of these ships, like if they suddenly gave Mines 200 depth charges per drop, do you think Mines damage in any way during a match would change? I don't. It would probably get less, because you'd be so distracted by the bombs dropping for like 2 minutes. Okay. Buffs. 18 bomb solution. Okay. Okay. Jinan. 2.1k ASW. It's really fun trying to sail on top of a sub in a Jinan, by the way. I recommend it highly. Trust. I'm glad to see this. You know what I would see instead of all of this increase in depth charges? We have now implemented Squid. Or we have now implemented Hedgehogs. But, yeah, whatever. Kaba notorious sub-hunter. Celebes. Oh yeah, these poor bastards still don't have... ship-based ASW, do that. Jeesh. Like... Look at this Harlem buff. Wait, no, they nerfed the count, but they increased the damage. EU needs Hedgehog? Yeah, I mean, the thing is, though, like, they're modeled on the ships as well. They're literally modeled on the ships. Like, all of them have a Talon, Smalland. See these things here? You see how these things are on a swivel? You know what that meant? You could aim them. You could target where the sub is, and then you could launch them. But instead, what we have here is the laziest animation of some sort of forward-firing standard depth charge that in no way resembles a hedgehog. Like, hedgehogs are detonated on impact. You literally, like, you shot out a huge net, this huge spread of basically bombs that armed on impact with the sub, and then they fell straight down, and if the sub was there, as soon as they made contact with the sub, they exploded. This would have been a really cool mechanic, actually, because you could have, like, the same way you have ship-based ASW, or plane-based ASW, you could aim a circle, and you would shoot, and it would land hedgehogs, and then if you hit the sub, you'd get, like, direct hits. But instead we have forward-firing basic depth charges, and they pretend like it's unique. It's like, okay, cool. Oh, which one is this? There. Gun blocker, yeah. Trump, huge increase. Atelier Regala, increase. I mean, this is nice and all, but the fact that they're comfortable making this change, the fact that they're willing and comfortable making all these changes, just shows how little this actually affects the balance. Like, how little this will actually change the gameplay. It's basically not gonna do anything. You can poop G for longer now. That's cool. That's cool. What's this? Oh, this was these things. There we go. Like, cruisers not having plane-based depth charges is just completely demented. Anyone who's ever played a cruiser in World of Warships knows that ship-based ASW on a cruiser against a sub is such a fucking joke. It is so bad. Like, the worst part is if you even manage to pull off a perfect depth charge strike with a cruiser on top of a sub, you might not kill the sub. Or you probably won't even kill the sub. It's just demented. Show the gang clip? Where's the gang clip? Is it this one? Oh, it is. Fine. I'll show you this. I'll show you the gang clip. Because Gang fucks up here, which makes it extra funny. He fucks
Wait.
up. He gets ran down by a ruin.
Wait.
He gets
Lul.
he gets ran down by a ruin, which is a fuck up, honestly. If you make this in a German sub, if you get ran down by a ruin,
That's why I missed the Torps. Wait, that doesn't even make sense.
like this should be 100% of the time. Like this is as big of a fuck up as you can make. Look at this. This is as big of a fuck up you can make. This is like giving broadside in Shima to a fucking Venezia. This is like giving broadside in a Des Moines to Vermont at like 5 kilometers. This should be a guaranteed death sentence. Like they're literally going through his ship and exploding.
No way! They do 0 damage! What?
Blow up when someone
Yeah, like it's
What?
like when sub players themselves get fucking shocked at how useless ASW is, that's a fucking moment for sure. Well, imagine the Rune, because he basically killed himself doing that. That's why I wasn't expecting the Rune to do that, because what the Rune was doing was suicide. He was running up into the entire enemy team getting himself killed. So it was a guaranteed suicide by the Rune. But even the Rune couldn't get a 1-for-1 despite it, because they just didn't do anything. It's just demented. Just the state of submarine implementation in the game is just so bad fundamentally, because subs also have this issue where unless it's like a super unicum in a very strong sub, they tend to do very little during a game as well. But the target that the submarine focuses, the target or the targets that are focused by the submarine, have an absolutely horrendous gameplay experience. That's why I don't understand the submarine implementation, because it's not like a CV where the CV is just hilariously overpowered regardless of who's playing it, because subs, if they're bad, they don't really do much. They're kind of fucking useless. Like, they're objectively kind of fucking useless. But if you're that poor schmuck who's being fucking focused by a submarine, this undetected asshole either shotgunning you from 3.5, 4 kilometers or whatever, or just constantly pinging you, your gameplay experience is complete dog shit. Because all you're doing is dodging. You're dodging, dodging. You can't push in at all. If you push in, you die. Your only choice is to kite away. So you're running away, and you're having your game ruined by this one fucking asshole that you can't see, and you don't have any counterplay against at all. So that's why I just don't understand Wargaming submarine implementation at all, because I rarely see anything being added to the game by the subs. They remove surface ships from matches, which makes the map seem more empty. It seems like there's less going on, less action, less battles. And on the other hand, anyone who has to fight the sub generally tends to have a fucking atrocious experience of doing it. So, I just don't understand it. It just seems like in every possible way it's such a flawed implementation. They're like old CVs, yeah, but old CVs were really, really fucking overpowered. Whereas the current subs, well, they were really overpowered in good hands. Let's add that caveat. An RTS CV in average or potato hands was useless. It didn't do anything. But in good hands, they were really OP. And the new subs are kind of similar. Like in good hands, they're really OP. But in the average player, RTS CVs didn't really do much. But for the average player, subs, whoever gets focused by that sub has a terrible match. Like just a terrible match. Objectively a terrible match. And it doesn't really matter what class you're playing, unless you literally have the fucking submarine surveillance, which they added to specific classes, specific ships. If you don't have that, your gameplay experience being focused by a submarine is awful. Like, you see people, super unicums, experienced players, go other flanks than subs. Like, they will play a flank regardless of what's there, but if there's a sub, they will try to not play that flank, because they don't want to be that guy being focused by the sub. Because it doesn't matter how good you are at the game. If you're focused by a sub on a flank and the sub doesn't kill himself instantly, your gameplay experience for the next 15-20 minutes is trash. You spend every DCP, you spend all your time avoiding this constant volley of torps being sent your way. And if you fuck up once on that, you lose a shit ton of health and you probably get yourself killed. You're permanently spotted by the submarine as well, and his team is shooting you constantly because of that. So you're just kind of sitting there suffering and no one can help you. Like, if I see a dude being chased by a Shima and I'm playing a radar ship, I can go there and can fuck that guy. Against the sub, I can't do anything. I have no counterplay. No one can help him. Even the carrier sitting out the plane can't help him because the sub can just die. Like, there's zero ways of even helping your teammate who's getting fucked by the sub. It's fundamentally, I would say, it's a griefing and a toxic implementation of a class. And I don't really see how wargaming can fix it, because what they're doing now is they're playing with the numbers, they're fiddling with the numbers back and forth. But the issue is the core gameplay design there is you have this completely black and white class where either the sub does fucking nothing and you ignore it, or alternatively the submarine targets you and your game is shit. God forbid you're playing nose in. Yeah, no, if there's a sub on the flank, you can't play aggressive at all. I mean, even all these people making these submarine guides, like, oh, here's a really good tip for you, by the way. Avoid the torps and kite away. Wow, I bet you didn't think of this incredible advice. But what they never mention is that how much fun is the game when every time this one class is on your flank, the only thing you can do is run away. Like, hello? Did you miss the part where the game isn't very fun if all you're doing is fleeing? Like, there are sub guides? Yeah, I know there are sub guides. It's so fucking cringe, man. Like, and if you go nose into a sub, you're just hoping he's bad. That's really it. That's what you're doing. When you're rushing a flank that has a sub, you're hoping the sub is bad enough that he kills himself. Because if he isn't, he's just gonna fuck you up so hard. But if he's bad, then you can kill him and you can continue. It's always like a gamble with them.